Okay, Gary, we are ready whenever you're ready to start, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. If everyone is ready, we'll get started on the Zoning Board of Adjustments Monday, January 4th, 2021. It's hard to say. And it is 1:31 p.m. Need to call to order and establish that there's a quorum present. I believe there is. Item number 2 is review and take any action related to the minutes of the regular meeting held on Monday, October 26, 2020. If everybody's had a chance to look those over, if they have any questions, fire away. If not, I need a motion and a vote to approve the minutes.
I'll motion to approve.
Got a second? I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Previous minutes of our record and they're passed. Next item on the agenda. Item number 3, election of chair.
So again, this is something we do every year. If you'd like to nominate someone for the chair, or if you have any thoughts, we also will elect vice chair at this meeting. So every January we do this. So that's what we're looking for right now, is a nomination for chairman.
We do it one at a time, nomination of chair, then go to item 4, election of vice.
Yes, sir.
vice chair.
That would work. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody want to nominate anyone for the chairman?
I'd like to nominate Gary. Stay in your position. You did such a good job.
Thank you.
I second that.
Well, there's a vote, second. Take a vote, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion to approve and vote. Motion to approve.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, item number 4, election of the vice chair. Bobby, you're vice chair, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're doing a great job, Bobby. I think you should stay.
Thank you.
Two.
I agree.
Yeah. All right,
So Jason, was that a motion?
Yes, that was.
that's a motion. Okay. Have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, vote. All in favor for Bobby to be vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Congratulations, Bobby.
Yeah, we have that established. Okay, item number 5, ZBA 20-30, 2902 Coleman Street, warehousing, single member district number 2, Tom Thompson. A request for a variance from section 501.A of the zoning ordinance to allow a 16-foot rear yard setback in lieu of the required 20 feet for a home to be located at 2902 Coleman Street. And who's presenting this?
Jeff Fisher.
Hi, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. Good afternoon, ZBA members. Our first case today is ZBA 2030, 2902 Coleman Street. This is a variance from section 501A of the zoning ordinance, and it's to allow a 16-foot rear yard setback in lieu of the required 20-foot rear yard in the RS1 zoning district. It's on 0.106 acres, District 2, Tom Thompson, in the Angelo Heights neighborhood. So again, the zoning is RS1. We sent out 19 notifications on this within 200 feet as required. No letters were received. So this is looking north at the property. This is Coleman Street that runs east-west and Hassel Street that runs north-south. So it's this vacant piece here. The applicant had received a couple variances on the east side of the street over here and built 2 homes. This is a unique area where the lots were platted at 92 feet. back in, I think it was 1927. And so normally you'd have 100 feet of depth minimum in the RS1 to work with. So it's a legal non-conforming lot. And this obviously makes it harder for them to meet the setbacks. This is looking north on the street, and then this is looking west from the property, or excuse me, east. And this is the house that was built recently that got the variance, and there's another one here on North Street. So we've had about 4 variances along this corridor for the same reasons. They just have the 92-foot lots. So here's the site plan that they submitted with their building permit. There's the 16-foot rear yard. There's an established building line on the street that the planning director had approved. And so the zoning ordinance without a variance allows an established building line. Basically, if the block from one street to the other street has an average front yard setback that's less, in this case, it'd be a lot of legal non-conforming existing homes, then they can do that. So basically, they've met the 18.5 feet at the front, and that's pushed the home up a little bit consistent with the pattern. And that way, they've still got the 16 feet at the rear, but they've given a little bit more space as close as they can to meet the front yard. And that way the rear yard setback is not really deficient. It's just a little bit deficient. These are just some of the elevations with the permit. You're not approving these today, but just so you can see what they're doing. So they're going to be siding house with composite roofing, very similar to what the other homes look like in the area, and roughly the same floor area too. They're proposing 1,828 square feet, which is roughly what a lot of the new homes in the area are. So consistent with other ZBA cases, first they have to demonstrate one of these 3 in order for it to be considered as a variance, and then they need to meet the criteria. So number 1, we believe that they've met a special circumstance. The original lot was platted in 1927 before zoning with the deficient lot depth of 92 feet and a lot area of 4,600 square feet. Again, the lot area in the RS1 today would be 100 feet, so they've lost that 8 feet. The deficient lot reduces the size of the home and ability to meet the setbacks. So staff is recommending approval based on the following criteria. The proposed variance is consistent with the other approvals in the area, including the one you all had approved immediately to the east, and that was 2830 Coleman, and then north of that, 2827 North Street. The situation was not created by the applicant. The lots were platted this way in 1927. Number 3, we believe there'd be an unnecessary hardship in this case if they had to meet the variance. Denying the variance would deprive the applicant of the same rights granted to surrounding owners who received similar variances. Number 4, this is the minimum action needed. They comply with all of the development standards of the RS1 zone. The lot coverage is just under 40%, and they meet all the other setbacks. So the lot depth is 8 feet less than what a standard lot would be today, but they're only asking for 4 feet less of the rear yard setback. So we think they're keeping in alignment with the zoning ordinance. It's just this one setback that y'all be approving. Number 5, the applicant is maintaining the established front building line, the average front building setback as mentioned. And number 6, it's consistent with the zoning ordinance and the home sizes in the area. So staff is recommending approval of a variance from section 509A1 of the zoning ordinance to allow a rear yard setback of 16 feet in lieu of the required 20 for a home within the single family RS1 zoning district, subject to one condition of approval. The applicant shall obtain a building permit from the Permits and Inspections Division for the new single family home consistent with the footprint provided on the site plan. They have submitted that building permit that's in review, and so far planning and permits didn't have any objections. So this gets approved today. They'll just finish off that permit process and be able to build their home. This concludes our presentation, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Any questions for Jeff? From the board? I don't hear of any. Jeff, I have one on the alley back there on the site plan.
Yeah.
Just for refreshing my memory purposes, when you're figuring the backyard, you take in half the alley when there's an alley?
I think that must have just been a carryover and we may not have noticed it. There is no alley behind this home.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm sorry. It must have just been, maybe they were using an old floor plan or something and just forgot to delete the word. There is actually no.
I was just trying to refresh my memory. If there was an alley there, you were allowed to take half of the alley for your backyard, to figure your backyard variance requirements?
It would only be if for an open structure, like a carport. And so they could go to half the alley distance, but in this case, it wouldn't apply because it's fully enclosed.
Okay, thank you. Public comment? Mr. Warehousen with us?
No, sir, he wasn't able to make it today, but we had
Right.
talked to him about it. So I think we're good.
Any comments from the board? There being none, hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as stated.
Motion for, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Yes, Bob. Second by Bob. Okay. Vote, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 6-0.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff. Item number 6, ZBA 20-31, 924 Tarver Street, Reyes. Single member district number 3, Harry Thomas. Request for a variance from section 501.A of the zoning ordinance to allow one foot side yard setback for an existing carport attached to a single family home in lieu of the required 5 foot yard setback for property located at 924 Tarver Street. Who is presenting this?
I am,
Hi, Sherry.
Mr. Chairman. Can you see my presentation?
Not
Not yet, no.
Not yet? Okay, bear with me. Please. Now can you see it?
yes.
Yay. Okay.
Yes.
As you indicated, this is a request for a side yard setback. It is at 924 Tarver Street. It is Mr. Reyes's property. It is in District 3, Mr. Thomas, Blackshear neighborhood, and it is in the Open Structures Overlay District, and that will become important as we move further through this area. This is the RS1 zoning, and that's his home. And immediately adjacent is a piece of property that when they added their additional bedroom, their bedroom came to with right on the property line, and that also will become important. We sent out 15 notices. We received 1 in support and 0 in opposition. This is a picture you can see. Here is the neighbor's property. If you view that right at that fence line, the neighbor's property is right on the property line. This is a little closer, and it starts at about a foot from the neighbor's property, and then as it moves back, it gets closer to the neighbor's property. I apologize. When the neighbor built that addition, he built it at kind of an angle, and he did not get a building permit at the time that it was added. And this is another perspective so that you can see that the carport Mr. Reyes did, he intended it to blend with his house. It has the same basic coloring. It has a slight pitch. It has the same accent color. He did a very nice job. The only problem is that it's about a foot from the property line. He also did not get a building permit, and when he came in to do additional work, he was told that he had to get a building permit. He applied for the building permit, and then we visited with him about what the problem was, and he wanted to ask for a variance if at all possible. The other portion of his request, and he's already in the process of complying with that, is that he knows he has to build a 1-hour wall that meets the building code if you grant the variance. This is the site plan that the applicant submitted. The applicant indicated that it was 2 feet, but as you can see, it does vary as it goes back, and where he's got 2 feet, it is just slightly over a foot from that side property line and the neighbor's addition. As you know, there are 3 areas in which a variance can be allowed. And in this case, the applicant believes that literal enforcement applies in this case because he is not asking to do anything different than others in his area have done, and he is more than willing to provide the building code safeguards that are necessary to meet the requirements. Under special circumstance, the applicant is in the open structures overlay district, which he would normally be allowed the 2 foot from the side property line. That is difficult to establish in this case because of where the neighbor built his addition right there on the property line or slightly over. Not a result of anything that the applicant did. In this case, the applicant did build the carport without a permit. He did that because he indicated that he did not believe that one was necessary for that small carport. And he doesn't keep a car under it. He keeps some equipment that he uses in his job underneath it. And in that area of town, most of the neighbors would never get a permit. It's just not a standard operating procedure for that old area of the town. And so it never even crossed his mind that he needed to get a permit for something so small. Under unnecessary hardship, staff does not see that there is an unnecessary hardship enforcement under this zoning ordinance. The only kind of caveat to that is the fact that it's not the norm in that area for people to get a building permit. Under minimum action needed, staff started working with the applicant and told him he really had 2 options. Either he could remove a foot of the carport along the side where the neighbor has built his addition and where it appears that the carport is closer than 2 feet to that property line, or he could move the carport to the other side of the house. And he really did not want to do either one of those. He felt that it would significantly impact the look of the carport and the work that he'd already done. So he wanted to ask for a variance. Under no adverse impacts, staff believes that granting the variance will reinforce the belief in that area of town that you do not need to get a permit for the small additions that you add or actions that you do on your property. And being consistent with the zoning ordinance, granting the variance would not be consistent in this case with the intent of the zoning ordinance purpose statement. And it really is, I think that all of you, I sent out both a copy of the support letter that we did receive and also the fire marshal's evaluation of the area. And because of that addition, the fire marshal is just really reluctant to have it be anything more than what he is allowed by the ordinance because it is so close to that addition that the neighbor put on. So staff is recommending denial of the variance from section 502 of the zoning ordinance to allow the 1 foot side yard setback in lieu of the 5 foot that is required. And then we're making a recommendation that the applicant remove a foot to make the carport comply with the open structures overlay district, which seems like a reasonable compromise to staff. And then they would have to comply with the building code 1 foot firewall, which he's aware of and which he has agreed to do. Are there any questions?
On the last part there, Sherry. So the fire marshal came in and said, well, didn't like what he saw. You're recommending that the applicant remove 1 foot?
Yeah, the fire marshal the fire marshal would like him to remove everything, but he understands under the ordinance that he can have it 2 feet from the side property line.
Okay.
But we want to make sure that he builds the 1 hour firewall as required by the building code and the
Well, and
fire marshal.
And I think another point to bring to that is the fire marshal's concern was not that everybody agrees he can comply with the open structure overlay if he so chooses. His concern was if he complies with open structure overlay, the gentleman to the west did nothing. There's no firewall, there's no nothing. I mean, this is really an unsafe situation. So, Ross understood that this gentleman could technically meet the ordinance, but he really didn't like any of it, to reiterate what Sherry had said. So what I want to be real hesitant of is letting the carport stay as it is and increasing the vulnerability of these 2 structures to fire risk when it's not necessary. Again, if he just moved the carport back a foot, he's not parking cars under it, so he doesn't need a certain exact, he doesn't need like an 8 or 9 foot width to park a car. So the 1 foot back would just at least give us a 2 foot separation between. I still don't think that's probably sufficient for fire purposes. If you think about, let's say this gentleman's house catches on fire, the fire rolls underneath the carport. It's only 2 feet till it gets to the next house. That's a really dangerous situation. Normally in our open structure overlay, basically there would be 2 foot on this
Both
gentleman
sides.
and at least 2 foot on the other gentleman's side. So that gives us a total of 4. So this is still not an ideal situation, but we believe that the variance to leave it at 1 foot is just not anything that staff would support from a building permit side, from a planning side, from a fire marshal side. So that's why we were recommending to comply with the open structure overlay district in this instance.
Okay, the 1 foot back plus and a firewall, or 1 foot back and no firewall?
No, he has to do the firewall. That's a building code requirement. He has no choice.
And if we leave it
And
like this,
again-
we still have to do the firewall. Okay.
Right.
Yes, sir.
What's the definition of what do you firewall with? I mean, they're so
Can
close
you-
together. That other house next door is right on by the map here. It's almost butting up to that same property line.
Sherry, can you unshare your screen? I think Charlie's on.
Do you, and I did a little research, thinking, not knowing what was gonna come of this. Would it be like, remove the existing fence that's there and come back with like a concrete cinder block wall up, fence height, 6-7 feet for that distance? Would it be the firewall? The cinder block has a 1 hour fire rating on it. And so when I came, I thought, let's see what we can do here. And I thought, well, what if they go, both neighbors maybe agree, maybe not agree, but take the existing fence down. I can't tell if that's a wood fence or not.
It is.
For that area involved there, come back with the cinder block fence with a 1 hour firewall rate.
And as I'm starting to think about this, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why it's just processing. But if they enclose it and have 2 opposing walls, it no longer meets the open structure overlay requirement. So they'll have to go to 5 feet. So if we go back to 5 feet, again, the variance in front of you is to allow 1 foot in lieu of 5 foot. So we will work with him if he can meet open structure overlay. Just judging by what we're talking about here, he may or may not be able to. The question before you is, do you think the 1 foot, that's what the applicant has asked of you. Can I keep it at 1 foot in lieu of the requirement of 5 foot in the zoning district? So I don't want to get too heavy into open structure. We need to work through some of those details. And again, that's all stuff that staff can do. That doesn't need, you guys don't have to make those decisions. That's already written into the ordinance. So we will continue to work with him on that. Really, the decision we need from y'all is, are you going to allow it to remain 1 foot from the property line in lieu of the required 5 foot? If that makes any sense, I hope it does.
Are there any repercussions to that property owner that overbuilt on his property on the next door?
Charlie, I'm sorry to keep pulling you in here. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, if they built without a building permit, is there repercussions to that?
It would run into something similar that we've run into today, is that if they ever go to do anything on that property, then they have to bring those structures in compliance. I don't know when or if a building permit was issued on the neighboring property.
And I will say, y'all, I even went back, I'm sure Sherry Bailey did too. I looked back at the 2007, at least, Google images of the neighboring property. And that structure was there at least in 2007.
Yeah, it was built in 83 and he did not get a building permit. And I talked to the neighbor when I was out there one of the times and he said, no, he didn't get, it didn't cross his mind at the time. And for whatever reason, he didn't get it.
So it's almost 40 years later. So I think what Charlie's saying is that if he comes in at any point to have any sort of building permits, which I guess we need to start at least monitoring this a little bit closer, but because we don't want this to continue. I guess that's the main point of this. We don't want this to continue to happen. We don't want to set the precedent of just build it. And then once you've built it, we'll figure out how to make it work. Because
Right.
that's,
right.
I mean,
That's
had the
what I got
gentleman
to
just,
that.
Right.
That's an age-old problem.
yeah, had the gentleman come in and asked us like, hey, I want to build a carport, we would have said, okay, probably can't be like a carport size, but we could probably do this. You know, we could have worked with him through these issues because again, had he stayed 5 feet away, he wouldn't have even seen us or seen y'all, or, I mean, planning probably wouldn't have even been involved. Building permits would have probably just issued the permit and we'd be done.
Gotcha.
So I guess that's the main concern from staff is we don't want to say, okay, now that it's there, we got to figure out how to make it comply with our ordinance. That's not the reality of it. It's come get a permit, talk to us. We'll work through it with you. You know, we can help you through these issues and these questions as you go. But
I think in that neighborhood, I would agree with him. They build first and think later.
mhm.
We build a lot in this neighborhood, and that seems to be our issue we run into with a lot of the neighbors we build around. I could go both ways. I could say, getting him to push it a foot back, I would think would be the best way to go. I don't know. I don't want to run into the fact that, you tell him no, and then everyone else is making sure they don't get into the city. The city doesn't draw attention to that neighborhood because the city will shut it down. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and I think the good news about this is, again, we laughed about this. We're not, just because this one guy came in, we're not going out and trying to find all the problems. Number one, we don't have the staff to do that. We would love to work with the neighborhood and build a rapport that, please come talk to us. We'll help. We'll get this worked out. We want to solve the issues before they become issues, because this gentleman, again, he didn't come in for a carport permit. He came because he was looking to do something else, and building permits caught, hey, you've got a carport there that was never permitted. So that's how this one got caught. But really, y'all, my main concern is the life safety issue of this. If we let them build 1 foot apart with no firewall, I mean, that seems very dangerous to me. So,
Well, the other part is if he's using it for storage, that could very well include flammables and equipment that could cause sparks. So I'd like to make a motion that we deny unless he can come up, or the city can help him come up with some kind of a viable firewall for that very reason I just said.
Can we deny it? But with the thing, I don't know. I could lean towards if he took that other foot off, if he got a true 2 feet away.
Well, so one option is that you guys approve a 2-foot side yard setback in lieu of the 5. That will still require, per the building code, he do the firewall. It will more than likely not be a carport anymore. It will not comply with open structure, but you have the ability to lessen a building setback. So if you say that we would like a 2-foot side yard setback minimum, then he basically will have an enclosed structure 2 feet from the property line, if that's the way you want to go. Does that make sense?
I'm gonna go back to my original question. Can or cannot the firewall be the fence if the fence is built out of material?
Charlie, can you explain the firewall requirements for the structure if it was allowed to be 1 foot from the property line?
There's so many ways to achieve a 1-hour wall. Being that close to the property line, they would not be allowed to have any openings, that no windows, no anything to that effect. But what they would have to do is contact one of 2 of the most common assemblies, or like your underwriter's label and factory mutual, and they would have to tell us how they intend to achieve that 1 hour. There's so many ways to do it that they would have to provide that information. I know, Mr. Cortese, you were talking about like a CMU wall that could give them up to 2 hours. But with a structure that's going to be out in the elements where it could be destroyed, the typical, like where you see the 5/8 sheetrock, I just don't see how they would be able to achieve that in this scenario. But there are still other ways to get that 1 hour.
So on an interior wall, I think what Charlie was kind of saying, on the interior wall, you know, they do the 2 layers of sheetrock, or there's multiple ways to do it, but this being an exterior wall, well, one of them at least, they have to just tell us how they plan to do it. So I guess an engineer or an architect would be able to lay something out like that, Charlie?
Well, the applicant can.
Okay.
They can visit the underwriter's label website and indicate how they'd like to achieve a 1 hour. The one thing that you fall into is that brick carries 0 rating along with metal. It doesn't have any kind of rating. It's just considered non-combustible. So that tends to be another concern that we run into. Now there is a product that you can apply to metal, like a sheathing, a metal sheathing, to create that 1 hour, as long as it's not introduced to the elements.
Charlie, the CMU wall, would that be your preference?
I would review anything that how they would like to achieve it. There's so many ways out there with so many products that I wouldn't want to try to tell them this would be the only way to go. CMU, right. Yeah, it'll meet the elements, and like I said, it would actually create a 2-hour wall for them if an unfilled cell is 2 hours.
Okay.
Ooh, tough one. Is the applicant here?
He is not, Gary. I've been trying for the last 2 weeks, and I think they went home for the holidays and have not gotten back from there.
What is the structure in the back left corner of this house? Is that a shed? It looks like it's built right on the property line as well.
Yeah, that is a small storage shed, and he has removed it since that picture was done.
Oh, okay. Sherry, when you looked at this, is that carport, if he removed it and say moved it to the back or the other side of the house, is that doable?
When we talked, he really didn't want to do that. And I think it is just from the look of what he has done. He put the fence up to conceal the carport, etc. And then because he does store his work items underneath there, he would have to build another fence and that kind of thing. So it's an increased cost. But the one thing that we didn't talk about was the CMU wall for the length of that area. And he might be willing to do that because he works with CMU walls.
But yes, Stephanie, it is an option. I mean,
Yeah.
say, if you deny the variance, he could say, you know what, I want to keep it. I'm going to move it to the other side or to the back or whatever.
Right. And we wouldn't be involved in that except from a building
Yes,
permit
ma'am.
standpoint.
Any more comments from the board? Being none, Debbie, you wanna state your motion again, please, ma'am?
Yes, the motion that I made was to deny the 1 foot setback. I really don't even think the 2 foot setback would really accomplish a whole lot from a safety perspective. I'd rather see him move it. So mine is to deny the request.
Okay, that's the motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I second.
There's a second, ready to go to vote. All in favor, say aye.
I got a question real quick. I'm sorry.
Raise your hand. Aye.
Well, hold on, Gary.
I'm
Gary,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you hear Stephanie? She had a question.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do we all have to vote? Remind me, I'm sorry, it's been a while.
Yes.
It has
you
to be
all have-
unanimous.
It has to be unanimous since there's only 6 of you.
It has to be unanimous to approve.
Right.
It does not have to be unanimous to deny.
So
Does
how many
not
have to have?
Basically, if you don't have 6 people voting in favor of the variance, it is
It's-
denied.
Right.
Okay. But to deny the variance, as the motion is, it doesn't have to be unanimous.
That is correct. It would be Brandon, I know you're on here as well, but you have to approve a variance, you have to have a majority of.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. The ordinance says concurring vote of 6 members to reverse an order, requirement, decision, or determination of the director, or decide in favor of an applicant on a matter.
Yeah.
Authorize a variation of the terms of the ordinance. So, yeah, if you don't get a favorable 6 vote on approving the variance, then yeah, it doesn't pass.
Thank you, Brendan. And Hillary, the only reason I'm voting against it is because it sounded like y'all threw out 3 options. And we don't know which option to vote on. I think maybe if you went back to Reyes and said, you know what, these were some options that the board laid on the table.
Yeah.
Which one fits you best? You could come back and then we could vote on that one option. I mean, because,
Sure.
you know,
Sure. He can't.
somebody
he can't
has
apply-
this say so, and say so. So I really
Yeah.
don't know what you're voting on, truthfully.
Sure. So, and again, Debbie's motion, as I understand it, is to just deny the request at this point. Again, she doesn't believe that the 1 foot with the fire rating is enough. So we will go back to him. He cannot request the same variance at the next meeting. But if he decides, you know what, I can go to 3 and do a firewall and do this and really have some details for you guys, he could come back to this board with a different request. So,
Yes.
and him not being here, it doesn't help. I mean, I know it's tried very hard to find him and get him here. Like you said, the holidays kind of throw a wrench in people's plans sometimes. So I'm sure he didn't intend to miss it. But yeah, I mean, I think if you guys are comfortable, moving forward as you're going right now, then we'll continue to work with him.
Right. Denying it is the cleanest.
Yes.
Yeah. And that way we can tell him, hey, they're not comfortable with this. So let's come up with a better option and see what
Right.
we can do together.
Okay, here we are. Motion's on the table. There's been a second. You ready to vote? All in favor, for the motion on the table, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's been denied.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, number 7, the division report.
So we've said this multiple times, but we will continue to do these meetings by Zoom at this point. We're hoping that we can be back in person as soon as possible, but we will continue to keep you up to date and as we go along and decide how the pandemic is moving, what direction it's going. So we appreciate your time. And I know that it would be nice to be in person, but we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Item number 8, next meeting agenda. It's Monday, February 1st, 2021. Is there any items on the agenda as of?
Not at this time, no.
Not this time. Okay. Item number 9, adjournment. There a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Got a second? Your second.
Second.
All in
Nobody
favor, say
second.
aye. Aye.
Ah.
Thank you, folks. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.